we request that you unmute yourself. We just try to do that because we end up with a number of folks in here, and sometimes it's hard to figure out who's talking, and it just helps us keep sort of organized and make sure we get to everyone and keep the meeting rolling forward. There should have been a note when you popped in that the meeting is being recorded, so just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And also it's on the screen here as well, but if you're having any technical issues, you can send us a message in the chat. You can email us. It's contact us at smtcmpo.org, or you can call us at 315-422-5716. And we've got a link there at the bottom of the screen, but if you go to the SMTC website and you go on public participation and to the meeting section, there's a little more information there as to if you're having any technical difficulties. So what I wanted to do was quickly, I'll go through the agenda. I just wanted to introduce the SMTC staff that is here with us today. We have Tom Bardenett, he's Senior Transportation Planner. He's going to be speaking a little bit later. Megan Vitale, she's our Principal Transportation Planner. She's going to be speaking later as well. And Andrew Frazier is also with us, our Senior Transportation Analyst. He's going to be speaking later, and he's also helping to run our live YouTube stream as well. And so for those of you that might be new to this forum, we like to hold our questions until the end. You can certainly type questions into the chat feature so that, so you don't, in case you're worried you might forget your question, you can type them in. But this way we can address all of those at the end of the meeting after we've had all our speakers run through, and we can come back to any topic that you wish to do. So, let me see here. I didn't move my presentation forward. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, here's our here's the first half of our agenda. We will we'll start momentarily with staff updates from us, from SMTC staff. And then we've got some member agencies on the line that we'll ask to share some of their updates. And then we've got a presentation portion of the meeting today. And then we, again, like I mentioned, we hold our questions till the end. So we'll have 25 minutes for question and answer and discussion, and then closing. So just a real quick overview of the meeting controls. I think at this point in time, most folks are used to using Zoom and comfortable with it, but this screen right here shows you where your mute and stop, your mute and unmute buttons are, and your stop and start videos. Again, like I mentioned before, everyone's on mute. We will ask you to unmute when it comes time to that question and answer period if you choose to raise your hand and have questions. You can see the list of participants. You can open the chat window. You can put a question into that for our speakers as well. And then if you can, when we get to the question portion, you can raise your hand through the screen this way with the little raise your hand icon, or you can actually raise your hand and we will see you on the screen if you have questions later on. Let's see. Also, if you're calling in, there's some specific controls. Those are on our website as well. But if you're calling in and later on in the meeting, you would like to ask a question, you can press *9 on your keypad, and then you also have to press *6 to unmute yourself. This we include as part of every one of our meetings as well. Participant conduct. We just ask that folks be respectful of one another and of each other's time as well. So that's what all of that kind of talks about there. So let's see, let me get into some of I'll start with an update of some of the projects that SMTC has been working on and give a brief overview of these. And if there's any questions about any of the projects, you can certainly put those into your chat box, or you can ask at the end of the meeting. If you don't wish to ask today at all, you can follow up and send us an email as well. So what I've got on the screen here are just a few of the projects that we are going to be wrapping up here at SMTC in the next 4 to 6 months or so. And the projects that I'm going to share with us are bike ped related projects, because that's what this forum primarily focuses on, is active transportation. So we've got our Onondaga Nation Nedrow Route 11 corridor study. We have developed a 3-lane concept for that project, and we've got some land use concept plans for Nedrow, and we held our second public meeting in October. For our Westvale Plaza area ped and bike mobility analysis project, we've held a couple of public workshops, and we also recently presented some concepts, various draft concepts to the public. We talked about access management, a mid-block crossing, speed cushions, protected off-road shared use path, as well as chicanes along a stretch of road there. For our West Side Trail City of Syracuse project, we recently developed issues and opportunities matrix for evaluating an on-road bike network in the West Side. And we're also in the process of creating some conceptual drawings for some off-road trails and recommendations on the West Side. And that project primarily focuses on the areas of Skunk City near West Side and Tip Hill, and then making the connection between those locations and downtown. We're also wrapping up our Safers to School guidebook for the city of Syracuse. And some of the things that we've done since, I guess since summer, you'd say, or late at the end of the last school year, we were able to get into the school's online digitally through a survey. We were able to survey the Grant Middle School students through their social studies classes, and we heard from about 145 of them, which was pretty great. And we also were able to follow up this fall. Actually, a couple of weeks back, we did a walk audit with the students. We've got a picture on the screen from our outing with them. And right now we're in the process of developing a list of draft interventions to improve their walk to school. And then we're looking to create recommendations to be able to replicate this process in other schools in the city. So those are the projects that are all going to be wrapping up in the next 4 to 6 months or so. And then we've got 2 studies that are newer that we've been working on. And one of these is the Brewerton Trail Feasibility Assessment. We held a scoping meeting, and we held our first study advisory committee meeting so far of the project. We also met with National Grid to figure out how to request trail on their property and meet their trail design requirements. And we provided that information. We passed that along to Cicero, and that project is ongoing, as is the Greater Fayetteville Area Bike and Ped Connection Study. This project recently kicked off. We're taking a look at linking the villages of Manoa, Fayetteville, and Manlius together, linking them to neighboring parks and trails, identifying some on-road bike routes that would to improve safety. So we'll have on-road bike routes that are safer, and increase bike ped trips. And so we've got a consultant working on that project. And like I said, we kicked that off recently, and our next meeting for the SAC will be coming up in a couple of weeks. And we'll be starting to reach out to the public in early 2024 for that project. So that's another newer project that we've started. I also want to point out that we are in the process of beginning our 2024-2025 UPWP program. So this is the program that outlines the work we're going to do for the coming year, the planning work. So we are currently seeking requests for transportation planning assistance to work on in our upcoming program year, which will run from April 2024 to the end of March 2025. And these types of projects have to be submitted by one of our member agencies or a municipality that's within the SMTC planning area. And as you can see here, the applications are due December 22nd, but we will hold a meeting prior to that on December 11th to answer any questions that folks might have. And there's more information on our website about that process. And so let's see here. Let me check one thing before I move on. Okay, Megan put into the chat that the link to that the information about our planning process there. So thank you, Megan. So next we're going to move on to our member agency updates. And this is a portion of the project where our member agencies just kind of give us a little update on what they've been doing that might relate to bicycle and pedestrian planning or programming, bicycle pedestrian active transportation planning. So let's see, I think what I'm going to do is we'll start with Julie, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot. Julie is a senior transportation analyst with the New York State Department of Transportation. And let's see where she's at here.
Oh, she dropped out. She's
okay.
Come back in now.
She just logged back on.
All right, let's see. Okay. Julie, are you with us? Okay, missing her again. All right, what we can do, let's see. Is she in?
She should be.
Let's see here.
Danielle, it looks like Julie's in, but her audio is not connected. So maybe she's gonna call in.
Okay.
I'll go next.
All right. Why don't let me move on. Let's see. We got anyone else here? Is Neil here? Oh, is he him? Or Chris? Robert. Okay. All right. All right. Do you want me to just move to our, yeah, Julie, it looks like, let's see. We may
join the meeting.
Give me 1 second here, everybody. Apologize for the wait. Okay. All right, maybe what we should do at this point is just move ahead. You want me to do that, Megan?
Yeah, I'll try to
I think we've
Julie.
lost. I think we've kind of lost her. So okay. The only thing I am going to pour Adriana, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a second. Just ask you to unmute, but Adriana is joining us from the health department. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Just if you would like to introduce yourself. This is the first time I think Adriana has joined us for a meeting like this. So typically what we do is we ask our member agencies to just give a little update on anything that that your agency might be working on, anything related to bike ped. But if you just want to introduce yourself and tell us why you're here, and then the next meeting we can get into the other sort of stuff. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So Adriana Savage, I am with the Onondaga County Health Department. My role that best fits here is we hold a grant from New York State called Creating Healthy Schools and Communities that allows us to be able to work on anything active transport, I guess, initiatives within a community. I love to say the word complete streets, although I still don't know how much I understand that fully. But we do have grant funding to kind of work on, changes surrounding walkability. So most of my experience is really with Safe Routes to School, but happy to be here and hear more about what you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. And Adriana's been working with us on our Safe Routes to School project as well that I mentioned just a couple minutes ago. Let me see if we are able to get Julie real quick. I apologize. And if not, we will just move into our speaker portion. We can come back to member agencies if we are able to get them to join us a little bit later. Okay, I think what I will do is let's move ahead, and we've got a couple of presentations that we are going to do today at SMTC. So we've had a number of projects going on. So I am going to first introduce Andrew. Andrew, I hope you're ready. He's going to talk about the SMTC City of Syracuse sidewalk data collection effort. And that's a mouthful. So whenever you're ready, Andrew, you can go ahead and share your screen. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. I'm all unmuted and everything, right? Everybody can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Good answer.
You're all good.
Okay, great. I'm going to do a little screen share very quickly. How's that look for everybody? Everybody see a full screen there?
Yep. Looks good.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So as Danielle mentioned, my name's Andrew Frazier. I'm a transportation analyst here at the SMTC, and the purpose of today is just give a little bit of an update for the City of Syracuse's sidewalk planning study that we've been working on over the last several years. So this is just kind of a quick little brief overview. Let everybody know just this effort that many of you may have seen some new sidewalks going in. So big shout out to the city on that. But we're really
recording in progress
to partner with them as a part of that. So to get started. Okay, so where did this whole effort and everything begin, right? So the city of Syracuse, all the way back in 2019, first started talking about introducing a municipal sidewalk maintenance program. So what that would mean is, before that time, maintenance of the sidewalks was responsibility of the property owner, which could lead sometimes to uneven enforcement. And so one of the things the city was interested in was like, hey, what if we wanted to move forward and take over these sidewalks and the maintenance of them, like what sort of prioritization of maintenance would we need to do to kind of improve the sidewalks? So something that SMTC did back then a few years ago now was to talk about a sidewalk maintenance prioritization plan, which we said we would focus on three things, right? So the snow removal pilot. So you see, as we had a big storm on Tuesday, some of the little mini tractors knocking snow off the sidewalk. So those corridors that were much fewer miles back then, based on pedestrian demand using our pedestrian demand model, and then pedestrian safety, which was measured inversely by traffic volume. The one thing we didn't have was actual sidewalk conditions or an inventory of anything else that is happening in the right of way. And so we thought, hey, we can't really get too far with the maintenance plan without thinking about the actual condition of the sidewalk itself. So in order to really improve those recommendations that came out in a memo, right, a few years ago, we said, okay, let's get out there and actually collect some data. And then you could maybe use this inventory to combine with some other quality data to say, like, hey, this is some areas that we could do sidewalk improvements. And again, I'm going to shout out the city for all the work they're doing and adding to the sidewalk network right now. These are all photos taken from their Instagram that they've been kind of documenting along the way. So big shout out to all the work they're doing. So what did this timeline of the tasks look like? So SMTC for a long time has maintained a sort of block-based sidewalk inventory. And that was really just sort of like, are there sidewalks? Are there not sidewalks? Approximate condition, sort of like 25% complete, 50% complete, 75%, and 100% complete. Again, that was at a block by block level, and so that was useful for some just sort of basic transportation planning that we do at the SMTC and some other of our member agencies was interested in, but it wasn't going to be helpful sort of for this process because we really wanted things at like a parcel by parcel, the data broken down to that level. So we did some work with our GIS systems in-house here to sort of take that file and get it down to a parcel-based file. So that was a lot of kind of behind-the-scenes work before we could really go out there. And then the next thought was, okay, there's a lot of miles of streets in the city. There's a lot of miles of sidewalk. There's a lot of miles of just street frontage, right? And so what's the most efficient way that we can go out there and collect sidewalk inventory? But also, as long as we're out there, let's take a look at some of the other things that might be in the right of way, right? Things like what's the snow storage look like? Is the sidewalk abut right up to the street? Was there a little bit of a grass strip? Are there fences in the area? Utility poles. You see a lot of different things out there that we figured as long as we're going out there, we might as well take a look. And so the SMTC, working with the DPW, came up with sort of a list of attributes that we wanted to go out there and take a look at. And so right now, hey, we're here. This SMTC staff, and we have interns that have been coming in over the last few years. They've been inventorying sidewalk conditions, kind of at like a 1 through 5 scale, but then also those other those other inventory items that I talked about. And again, there's approximately 1,000 miles to inventory. So, and we've been working on this for 4 years. And we're about 75% of the way there. And I'm going to show that in a little graphic further along the way. But this is a lot of miles. They've been working hard. They've been walking an awful lot. This is a tedious process, but we think it's really important. So moving forward, eventually when we're all complete, the SMTC will deliver the data to the appropriate city agency. And we want to make sure that the sidewalk file, right, is geographically referenced. It's going to be more helpful to be kind of in a map form than it is just like an Excel spreadsheet. So we want to make sure we can work with them to make sure that that happens. And then we can look at a future maintenance of this data set. So you don't want to just collect it once and say, oh, that was nice. There's obviously a lot of sidewalk improvements that are going on right now. And so we want to make sure that those work their way into the database eventually that would keep track of all the sidewalk work. So how do we do this? We've had a series of iPads and Esri, so ArcGIS, which is essentially like a mapping software for those of you who might not be familiar. We have little small GPS units. You can see in the first photo on the top left there. So the interns know where they are. Again, walking on like a parcel by parcel basis. And we're not just collecting inventory, it's much more than that, as I mentioned. So there's 27 attributes that we're going through and keeping an eye on. And then so we can do all this offline, which is really cool. And then we get back to the office and sync it all the way back together. So here's just some of the those inventory items that we're out there collecting. So things like sidewalk material, does the concrete of the sidewalk go through the driveway? Is there utility poles, utility covers? All this is already in the sidewalk. Are there street trees? Is there snow storage? There's a ton of stuff out there. You'd be totally surprised to see the kind of things you run out there out in the field. And so it's been an interesting process, but it's really good to have all this information. And then, as I sort of hinted at earlier, kind of our progress over the last 4 years or so, we've been collecting somewhere between around 200 miles or so a year. And so those bars are the individual miles we collected each year. And then that sort of orange line, that trend line going up is how many cumulative miles we've collected. So around a little over 750 that we've gotten done so far. And like I said, there's about 1,000 miles of street frontage. So we're about 75% of the way there. So, hopefully that we can keep moving through this thing and get it done. So we had the city staff members collecting some of the ratings this fall, and that we are hoping to maybe complete this inventory next year. That would be really great. And then we could eventually turn over like a continually updatable inventory file that they can use for their municipal sidewalk program. And it can be part of just sort of a larger asset management program. So that is, again, just a real brief overview of what we've been doing to assist in this. We do get a lot of questions sometimes. People see the sidewalks going up. And so just wanted to kind of give a little bit of an overview of just our involvement in the process.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, that's a significant amount of work. Until you really think about everything that goes into it, it doesn't probably seem like much at first, but walking a couple hundred miles every summer is what we've had interns come in and do, and they've collected a lot of data that will be useful for a lot of different types of projects here in the Syracuse area. So thank you to Andrew for organizing all of them and all of the work that it takes to make that run smoothly. Let's see here. I'm going to go back real quick. Julie from New York State DOT had to leave us at 4, and there were some issues with her internet connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read her updates, and I apologize that I'm just actually going to read them off, but I want to make sure we share them because she took the time to send them over to us. So let's see.
Danielle, I don't mean to interrupt you. We have a couple of questions. We have a couple of questions.
All right. Yeah, go right ahead. Sorry about that.
Right now.
Yep.
I don't know unless we want to
please do.
So Charlie was asking about which Esri product. So we used it's Field Maps, which is sort of a combination of a lot of their individual apps, but really is just Collector. And so again, that's for those of you who are familiar with any of Esri's products, or ArcGIS Collector is included in your subscription in your software. So it's not any additional cost. And then, so do we have any estimated rate of miles per hour for data collected? Not specifically, and part of that is because we had interns out there doing data collection, we sometimes tag them up with doing data collection for other projects that we had going on. So if you noted, like if you look back at that chart, the first year was a lot lower miles. We were doing a parking study for the city as well, and so they were also inventorying parking signs and regulatory signs for that. So it's not a great one-to-one. We hope to have them out there every day, but obviously weather gets involved. But they tend to go out there, for a few hours every morning and just kind of collect as much as they can and then move on. And thank you, Peter, for kudos absolutely to the city for making just improving the number of sidewalks that are available.
Well, while we're here, are there any other questions on this for Andrew? You can raise your hand or even type something into the chat. That works fine too. Not seeing anything. Is anyone else seeing any questions? Get to those later.
Awesome.
Megan, do you want me to thank you, Andrew. Megan, do you want me to wait until the presentations are done and I'll come back to Julie's updates?
Now, that should be quick. Why don't you read through her notes and I'll put the link in the chat for everybody.
Beautiful. Sounds good. Okay, so Julie from New York State DOT shared a couple of notes with us that we'll pass along to you. She noted that the Village of Manlius paving project is wrapping up now, but it's mostly complete. She also wanted to talk about the fact that the New York State DOT is soliciting for projects for the 2023 Transportation Alternatives Program, the TAP program, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, which is also known as CMAQ, and the Carbon Reduction Program, CRP. These are federal funding programs administered by the states. Municipalities and other public entities are eligible to apply for a project. Nonprofits and advocacy groups would have to coordinate with one of those eligible sponsors, so a municipality or public entity. Let's see, she says there's 165 million available statewide, 103 million of that for TAP, 51 million for CMAQ, 11 million for the carbon reduction program, small, urban, and rural. And let's see, mobility and multimodal improvements for alternative transportation are mostly bike and ped improvements. And then the CMAQ and the carbon reduction program also allow for emissions reducing projects. The focus is on transportation, not recreational. So it means they generally want to see a clear origin and destination for new trails or sidewalks, trails parallel to roadways. The SMTC coverage area, which is all of Onondaga County and a small portion of Oswego and Madison counties. So the SMTC coverage area is eligible for CMAQ, but not for the carbon reduction program. SMTC spent allocated CRP money already locally through our TIP process for mobility improvements for the regional market area, RTC areas, in Syracuse and Onondaga County, excuse me. Let's see, she's got here the maximum federal share is 5 million, the minimum is 500,000. And let's see, trying to summarize this here. They're doing a pre-review of applications right now to give feedback to applicants. The final deadline is January 9th, 2024. And I think Megan was going to share in the chat their details on these programs on their website. So let's see. Yeah, thank you. Megan got that into the chat box. So those are the updates from Julie. And I apologize that we couldn't get that to work for her. And did we have anyone else join us while I was just speaking? Any of our other member agencies? Doesn't look like it. Okay. All right, we do have a question. Is the CNY area still in compliance for CMAQ as an air quality like ozone and particulates? And the answer to that, Peter, is yes, we are. Okay. All right, I am going to move on to our next speaker, who happens to be Megan. Megan is going to talk about our Metropolitan Transportation Plan process. And Megan, you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay, hopefully you're seeing my PowerPoint slides there. So I'm going to talk briefly about our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or MTP. The update process that we do for this every 5 years is a federal requirement. Our current long-range transportation plan, or LRTP, was adopted on September 23rd of 2020. Although we did adopt amendments for that in 2021 and 2022, just for the financial portion to account for funding for the ID1 project. So as I mentioned, this update is due every 5 years. For this update, which will be due in 2025, we're calling it the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So a little bit of change of language there. So MTP is the title we're using. The document, we're aiming to have that substantially complete by the spring of 2025, so that we can then go through some of the federal requirements for public outreach at that point, and then approval by our planning and policy committees by the end of September of 2025. It's not advancing for me. There we go. Okay, so the timeline, we kicked this off with a study advisory committee meeting in this past October. Throughout spring of 2024, we'll be working on context setting or documenting existing conditions, developing goals and objectives, and a system performance report, which is a required part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan according to federal guidelines. By fall of 2024, we should have an identification of needs completed and be working on future strategies in the financial plan. And into spring of 2025, we would like to have the draft plan substantially complete at that point for agency and public review. And then again, we need to have this adopted by September of 2025, by the end of September of 2025. We have a study advisory committee that is includes many of our planning committee members. They're listed here. I won't read all of them. As I mentioned, one of the first tasks in this process is to develop goals and objectives for the plan. And so we look to many sources to develop these goals and objectives. One being federal requirements. This is one of the core requirements on every MPO is to produce this Metropolitan Transportation Plan or long-range transportation plan. So there are some very clear federal requirements that we have to fulfill. We also look to local, regional, and statewide transportation plans. We are reviewing the previous goals and objectives in the current long-range plan, and then, of course, input from our study advisory committee and also public input. The federal requirements include some national goals for performance of the national highway system. These are very quantitative, pretty cut and dry. We have to produce a system performance report as part of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan that includes these performance goals around safety, system reliability, and infrastructure condition. We also recently learned that there's a new rule that came out around greenhouse gases that we will also need to include in our system performance report. Beyond that, we also have to look at a number of planning factors that are defined by the Federal Highway Administration. So these cover things like environment and quality of life, economic vitality, system efficiency, preservation of the existing system, access and mobility, travel and tourism, safety and security, resiliency of the transportation system, and then integration between modes. There have also been a number of planning emphasis areas that have been issued by FHWA since our last plan was adopted. So these focus on things like climate, equity and justice 40, complete streets. So these are all topics that we are required to touch on in our metropolitan transportation plan process. And every MPO has to cover all of those federal requirements. But we do also have the opportunity to look at our local, regional context, and develop some more unique goals and objectives to try to achieve our local priorities. So our staff have been reviewing a number of local comprehensive plans and regional plans and some of the statewide plans put out by the state DOT. And we're seeing some overarching themes that we think will guide our metropolitan transportation plan process. And so those are things like mobility and economic development, community, quality of life, preservation of the environment, and good governance. Public involvement is a key component of the MTP process. We do have a requirement at the very end of the process that we have to have a 30-day public review of the draft plan document. We also have to put it out for other public agency review, and we will need to have an in-person public meeting. But we want to have input throughout this process as well. In the past, when we have done our long-range plan, we have held typically a number of in-person meetings kind of scattered throughout the region, maybe 4 or 5 of those, and towards the end of the process. We are looking to, for this time around, conduct more numerous, but smaller and less formal interactions throughout the process. These might be virtual or in person. So we're thinking of things like tabling at community events, or kind of doing a speaking tour of other community groups, where we can have maybe briefer interactions, but more interactions with people, to kind of get their essential questions answered. You know, what is your experience of the transportation system? Help us identify some issues, and then get more people plugged into the process. So we will also have a lot of resources available on our website, like recorded presentations or other ways that people can provide input, even if we don't get to interact with you in person at one of these community events. We are also interested in tapping into this group, into the Forum on Active Transportation, to provide input specifically to the MTP process. So one of our thoughts was maybe to, in 2024, hold a series of our votes that would each focus on active transportation issues in a certain geographic area of our region. So maybe north, south, east, west, central, where we could really dig into more of those local concerns. We were wondering if there would be interest in doing any of those meetings in person. We've held nearly all of our FOAT meetings on Zoom since we started this, but we are open to the idea of holding some of those, or all of them, in person throughout 2024, again, specifically to get input to the MTP process. So we would like feedback on that. The other thing I would say, if you're interested in this process, definitely make sure to get on our mailing list. I will put that link in the chat when I'm done here. Follow us on Facebook. We recently got on Instagram as well. So if that's your choice of social media, we're there now as well. So follow us on those channels, and look for those opportunities when we'll be out in the community spring through next fall. That, I believe, is the end of mine. So.
Okay, so if while you're sitting here, if you think of if you have a preference as to in-person or virtual, for those future meetings, you can type that into the chat box, or we can chat about it at the end of in the discussion portion of the meeting today, or any input is really appreciated on that. We're looking to get some more and some different public involvement. So your feedback is greatly appreciated on what works for you.
It's also one of the questions on the evaluation form that we'll send out.
Oh, good. Okay. I was gonna,
so
okay,
good. Want to give us feedback that way, that'd be great.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, we've got an evaluation form coming up at the end of this meeting as well that we would appreciate your feedback on. So, okay, let's see. Next up here, we have Tom Bardenett, also with SMTC, with our office. And he's going to talk about our community streets program. So Tom, when you are ready, you can take it away.
Let me just get this up. Okay. Yeah, so community streets is something that the SMTC and the city of Syracuse have been kind of working towards over the last several years. Kind of started with an idea of communities around the country were doing these pop-up demonstration projects, and the city wanted to figure out a way that they could formally allow these projects to occur within their public right-of-way. So it started out with just a white paper kind of documenting what these type of projects how these projects have occurred across the country and how they've kind of been spurred, and then kind of led into a draft guidebook that was kind of developed right before COVID hit. So that wasn't a great time to get a new program off the ground. So this past year we have been reviewing it, updating it, and kind of figuring out how we might be able to make it work. And we're just about to launch it tomorrow. We'll start accepting any applications. But so we want to use this as an opportunity to give you a little brief overview of what the project is, what we're kind of looking at, and who's involved. So just want to give you a little heads up on that. So who's working on this program? The SMTC is one of the main organizing groups, along with ADAPT CNY, which is the city's chosen partner in this, as well as the city of Syracuse. So the SMTC staff are going to be involved in terms of reviewing submitted applications, making sure things are feasible, making sure what's being proposed is actually able to be installed in a realistic manner. And then also work with project applicants to refine them before they go to the city for review. ADAPT CNY will be grading these projects. Essentially, they have a budget this year that they're going to be able to fund up to 3 projects for next summer for installation. Projects can be up to $3,000 in total. That will cover different project costs like paint, temporary bollards, planter boxes. Depending on the project, there's going to be different needs for each project, but projects are allowed to be submitted up to about $3,000 and be potentially be funded by ADAPT CNY. And then the city of Syracuse, the Department of Public Works, will have the final say on whether or not a project can be installed. They'll kind of coordinate on the city end and making sure this project goes from an idea, getting the approvals from the appropriate agencies, letting fire department, police department know when certain things are happening. They'll kind of shepherd it through that part for us. So what is a demonstration project? It's a short-term, low-cost project used to showcase a potential design change within the public right-of-way. So these can come in all shapes and sizes. In Albany, they've done some painted bump outs in certain key locations. This is one of the more popular ideas. They're pretty easy to install, cheap, and they can add a lot of color to a community while also making it safer for people to cross and interact within intersections. Could be a temporary bike lane in certain areas. In the past, people have done parking day in the city of Syracuse, and that's still a continued thing around the country, where you take a parking spot and you make a small park or use it for something else. Possibilities in downtown Syracuse has a little outdoor dining that uses a parking spot. That could be considered as part of this type of program. You can try different designs for roadway intersections. Like this is a small mini roundabout, trying to see different options of how to make an intersection a little bit safer. You could even do protected bike or bus lanes. This is using tires and colorful balls to kind of signalize where the lane is. But you can do a bunch of different things like that, where it's just small tactical improvements to an area. So when is this happening? So as I said, we're opening the project application window tomorrow. Right now, people could get on our website right now and find some information. I'll get to that in a couple minutes. And we're going to be holding a virtual office hour or open Q&A on the 19th. This is really meant for anyone who's interested, kind of has an idea, doesn't really know how it might fit in. We want you to attend. It'll be held on Zoom like this. We'll be kind of available for an hour and a half or so for someone to pop on, ask a couple questions, or ask a lot of questions if they have a lot of questions, and kind of get a better idea of what might work within this program. Project applications will be closed by February 1st. We're hoping, based on that, we'll be reviewing projects as they come in and giving them to adapt so they can review them, so that by a little after February 1st, we'll have a good idea of what projects are likely to be funded. And then installations will occur over the summer next year. We're hoping to have everything in place where potentially late May, early June, some projects can start getting on the ground. But it'll really kind of depend on what type of project it is, if there's specific dates that they want to work around. But pretty much from May through September, all the 3 projects should be installed sometime in that window. So how do you get involved? First, come up with an idea. I know a lot of people who are on this. You guys are advocates on a lot of things. You're around your community, you see issues that you think, you know what, there's got to be a better way with this intersection, or I would love a bike lane here, but no one seems to understand why it would be beneficial. Just come up with an idea that makes your community a little bit better, and then create a team. We're really going to be wanting to stress organized groups. So if you have if you want to work through your TNT, or if you have a neighborhood association, any sort of organized group would be great, because we need to see that there's some sort of support for this, and that you have a backbone of a project team to be able to install it once, if your project is approved. And then develop a detailed design, budget estimate, and a plan of action. A lot of the details for that, we have different reference material on our website that you can use. We have a budget estimate worksheet that we want everyone to use, so that they don't have to come up with the cost. They just have to have an idea of what they need. And you can just plug those numbers in and produce a number for us, so that we can see that you've kind of really thought through what materials will be required, and draw it out. It doesn't have to be a fancy drawing or anything. We just need to have a picture of what you're really trying to think of for your street, your intersection, whatever it might be. And then reach out to your community. We want to see that there's support in your community for this. This could be letters of support from your neighbors, from local businesses. If you're doing it around a school, getting the school on board, or the PTA. If again, your neighborhood association, if it's a different neighborhood association around there, or you want your TNT to support it, any sort of official documentation that will be really helpful in terms of showing that it's not just a one-off. It's something that the community has deemed like that they want to see, and they want to see experimented with. And then submit your project ideas. Once we get them, if there's any immediate red flags, we'll send back some notes and be like, hey, we might want you to check this out a little bit, or reconsider this aspect of it. But really, if your project's approved, we'll work with you directly afterwards and really refine it to the point where when it's installed, it's ready to go. It's going to be something that will be immediately impactful. But again, just want to emphasize, only 3 projects will be installed in 2024. We don't want that to deter you. We want you to create the best project you can. And the idea is this will be an ongoing project after this. We're starting with 3 projects in 2024. We'd love to see it grow after that. But so if your project doesn't make it through this time, hopefully 2025 will be the year for it. And then where do I find more information? We've created just a one-stop shop website where you can see our guidebook. You can get to the application, the cost estimate worksheet and a lot of reference materials. If I just share my screen a little bit longer. So this is our website, smtcmpo.org/community streets. You can register for the Q&A session right up top. And just down here, there's the guidebook and the application timeline. There's a paper application and then online version. We prefer the online version, but if you'd rather print out a PDF and fill it out yourself, that's fine too. Just send it either scanned in, sent via email, or mail it to our mailing address. Other reference materials, the manual on uniform traffic control devices, some traffic data. Here's that cost estimate worksheet, some other ideas of what type of materials you might need. Just a little bit more on the ADAPT CNY funding, just so you guys know where it's coming from, why it's going through this way, as well as just a quick link to their website. You can check out some of the other work that they've done in the past. Some other documentation, related studies. If you want to go through some SMTC studies or other studies that you know, and there's projects that you see that you'd love to see test out, if it's something that is able to be tested, those would be a great basis to start with. If you don't have any ideas, we've got plenty of ideas on our website. These are some key ones that are within the city of Syracuse. I've realized I probably didn't emphasize that enough, is that all projects must occur within the city of Syracuse. They have to occur on city of Syracuse streets because this is a program through them. So I apologize if you're looking to somewhere in Beeville that you'd like to see happen. That's not going to happen through this program, but if Beeville wants to start their own, we fully would support it. And they'd be more than welcome to talk to us about walking them through these ideas too. And then we wanted to also highlight that Syracuse is not alone in doing these projects. There's other upstate cities that are doing similar things. Rochester and Albany both have some sort of demonstration project groups that are occurring. They do theirs a little bit differently, but we've really looked to them as kind of guidance to get ideas of like what works, what doesn't work. But we recommend checking them out as well because they've got a lot of cool ideas. So yeah, this whole website is a go-to spot, and then come to the Q&A on December 19th with all your questions, and we'll be there to answer them. And we can obviously answer some right here if you have any immediate ones. Hopefully we can get you guys started.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We've been, it's exciting to have this actually get started. This is something we've talked about for a few years here, and it's nice to have everything start to fall into place. And I would encourage you to speak to some of your community members and groups and maybe come up with a couple of ideas. And like Tom mentioned, check out some of the projects that folks have done in Rochester and the Albany area to get some ideas and attend that meeting on the 19th to get some questions, some additional questions answered. But let's see, we can, does anyone, while we're here, because our next step is to, first I want to say thank you to Andrew, Megan, and Tom for all sharing about some of the things that we've been working on here at SMTC over the past year and things that are coming up. And if anyone's got any questions specific for Tom or Megan or Andrew or otherwise, we can start taking questions. If you want to physically raise your hand or raise your hand using the chat feature. Oh, sorry, not the chat feature, the reaction feature that's down below with all of the icons there. You can see the reaction button, and we can start taking questions. Okay, Peter, 1 second here. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, I think.
Okay,
Yep, there we go.
yeah, fantastic idea. I think I may have mentioned this at a previous meeting, but just to say they might help to contextualize it. The people might be put off by something new or weird, but my one question is, I think it's a great idea, by the way. What kind of, I haven't had time to look through your materials, but do you have a solid way for the community to get back to you? I think it might be useful to highlight that this is kind of an iterative process, and I'm wondering if you're doing it that way.
For community streets.
Yes.
So they're going to be demonstration projects. We're encouraging whatever group does do the project, that they, within their application, they highlight how they would like to follow up. It'll be they won't get to go back that same summer and adjust the project. Like what they do will be out there for a specified amount of time. But if they hear feedback from their community that, you know, this might have been there might have been some changes they would like to see, that could always factor into a next round. Because the idea is these projects will occur every year. Whether or not that same area would be funded every year if the funding continues, I can't guarantee that, because that will be up to ADAPT CNY more than anyone else at this point. But we do encourage whoever it does apply to have some sort of plan to get feedback from their community specifically, and that they share that feedback in whatever way they deem fit.
Okay, yeah, it's just I think the words really worked out. For example, out west, there's a guy called Crossroads Labs in California. I've heard him speak at conferences. What they do there is the time period between trial and revision is shortened and compressed. So you're actually inviting the community to be co-planners in a sense. And I know that's a drastic idea for Central New York, where we're used to hiring somebody to do all the planning. I think that's my point, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. All right. Let's see, it looks like the next one I see is John Sexton. So John, it looks like you just need to unmute yourself if you haven't yet.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, it's really hard to hear you.
Yeah,
Peter.
you're
I
quiet.
can hear you, but really
All right,
faintly.
I will talk louder.
Oh, better. That's much better.
I don't have an office anymore. Came back part-time. They got me a cubicle, but most people have gone home by now. So anyways, I think that is a very exciting program, Tom. What are you doing for outreach? Because this is the first I've heard of it, I think. It doesn't sound familiar to me. What are you doing for outreach so that, more than, the dozen of us that don't work for SMTC will know about it?
Yep. So this was intended to be kind of the soft launch, knowing that people who attend these are very active in this arena, and likely if you don't have a project that you can think of, people who do have project ideas. But we will be starting to post more on our social media about it. We'll be sending out email to our full email list early next week, as well as then following up with some targeted emails to different organizations that we know. Definitely the TNTs, neighborhood associations, any sort of organized group that we are aware of. But any organization that you guys believe we should get in contact with, we really would love to hear that. As Sarah noted in her, she just messaged in the chat, ADAPT CNY will also be pushing it out through their network. They've got dozens of volunteers, and all the individuals that they work with will also be sharing it. So it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. It's the first time we're doing something like this. We're really trying to figure out the best way. But yeah, if you guys have any specific recommendations of people to contact, we would love to have them, and we'll reach out directly to those people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wasn't probably taking notes when you were talking, but that PowerPoint presentation, is that going to be available to us?
We could put it up on that website if that's helpful. We could put a PDF version of it up on the website.
Sure.
Just as like an easy reference. Yeah.
Okay. And when did you say the timeline was for submitting candidate projects?
So it's by February 1st. So we're trying to give people a couple months. They don't have to be perfect projects. We need to get an idea that you've really thought it through, but we know it's not going to be what's submitted. We're not expecting to be complete.
Okay.
Which is why once a project is selected by Adapt, Adapt and ourselves will work with the project sponsors to refine them to get them up to a point where the city feels comfortable having them installed. Making sure they adhere to certain traffic control standards and things like that. That's all factored into the process before they're ever put on the ground.
So I'm reminded of several years ago, Paul Mercurio's floating bike lane on Waverly. The city seemed to back down from that pretty quickly. Do they have a little bit more intestinal fortitude this time around, or?
I mean, it will depend. We're going to coordinate with the city throughout this process. They will have a voice throughout this process. They want to see experiments. Again, these are supposed to be short in duration. They could be as little as 1 day. They could be maybe a few weeks long. It really will depend on the project. So I think they'd be more willing to try things knowing that it's not a permanent installation.
Yeah, but all it takes is like 2 or 3 loudmouth people that are worried about being delayed by 3 minutes to get to the regional market or whatever. To in the past, it seems like it's all it takes to sink a project like this. And actually, it's kind of a universal type problem with a lot of bike facility projects. That's my concern, is that, you have a great idea, it works out really well, and then all it takes is 2 or 3.
Well, that goes to Peter's point of wanting to document some level of success. So if a group, say a group proposes some sort of bike lane project, and then schedules a ride to use that bike lane specifically and show the use of that bike lane, and why it's better. So at the end of this year, we plan on being at each of these installations and taking photos as well, because we need to document on our end what was done through this project for our own committees to see. But we would recommend any group that's trying to use it as a demonstration in that way to really schedule a demonstration in that way, and make it an event that showcases why this is a needed facility.
It's kind of interesting that there's nobody from the city here.
I mean, I think that's just probably bad schedule, or not bad schedule, but like something always comes up on DPW's end. They've got a million things that they're doing, but they've been working with us throughout this process to get this started.
Yeah, they're very plugged into this, John.
Yeah, we met with them on Tuesday to really kind of hammer home what the next month or two is going to look like as we open this up.
And it'd probably be a good idea to put something about this in your outreach efforts, to include like Facebook and Instagram. And
yep. Yeah, we'll be posting all over there as best we can.
Okay. All right, that's all I got. Thanks.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Okay, let's see. Just want to make sure. Looks like Peter has another question.
Yep.
Well, just a comment up. John mentioned the projects on Waverly that received a lot of criticism. The ironic thing was that, as far as I understood it, the designer of that project was actually approaching it as an experiment and was open to criticism, but there was a lack of public outreach because that wasn't part of the job, and it wasn't, people didn't understand how to do that. So that ended up being a stumbling block, whereas it could have just been, oh, let's just try something different. And if you look at those lanes now, they're actually not a whole lot different. They don't have the floating parking on them, but SU has continued to use a lot of that design, I feel, that in a positive way. So
yeah, and I forgot to mention, so as you look through the guidebook and the guide of how to apply, we do have a big emphasis on public outreach during this. So before any project can be installed, we will be requiring project sponsors to attend a TNT meeting and present their idea as a way to, at the very least, inform their neighbors, but also have further ideas of how they're going to inform their neighbors that this project is occurring. So that's a lot of this is trying to build up that public awareness and public support, or at the very least, just even if they don't support it, letting them know what's happening so they can see what it actually is before criticizing it, hopefully. No, John's point of notify your common councilors, we highly recommend notifying your common councilors. Yeah, even better would be notifying your common councilors that you want to apply for this and getting their support as you submit the application. We'll take that into consideration heavily, I'm sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's see.
Yeah, I don't see any more hands raised now. I did get 2 registrations for the Community Streets Q&A already, so that's great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm not seeing, does anyone else have any questions? Or if you think of questions, following our meeting today, you can always email us at contact us at smtcmpo.org. And all of our email addresses are on our SMTC website as well. I'm not seeing any. Megan, do you see any other? I don't see anything else.
And
I'll
I'm
make
just
sure I
gonna
don't
share
miss
the
anybody.
chat, our meeting evaluation
Oh,
form.
yes, please.
So if people have thoughts on the format for meetings coming up in 2024, especially in light of our metropolitan transportation plan process or other meetings that you would be interested in us coming to speak as a guest speaker or tabling events, please use that evaluation form to provide that feedback.
Appreciated. Oh, let's see, Peter, I'll ask you to unmute. Peter's got another question or comment. Go ahead.
Just one more brief comment is just that the community streets idea, what you might bring out is that a lot of this focuses on not street knowledge, people's knowledge of the streets around them locally, which is actually something the planner might not have, and so it's actually part of what your street walks, your street audits are now focusing on is that street knowledge. So it's worth tapping. Certainly, people have this knowledge. So
Yeah, no, and that's one of the main drivers behind this, I think, is trying to give people the opportunity to really shape the planning process in that way. And so, yeah, we're very excited for that. We're excited to work with communities and get some of these projects going.
Okay. I think that is probably a wrap for today. Really appreciate your time, everybody. And if you could take a couple of minutes to fill out the evaluation form that Megan posted in the chat, we would really appreciate having your feedback on future vote meetings. So thank you again, everybody, for your time. And we hope to see you in the next year. Happy holidays.